Okay, I will call the December 7th, 2022 meeting of the East Lyme Board of Selectmen to order. And we've already had the Pledge of Allegiance for the town meeting, so we'll dispense with that and move on. Any additional consent item, agenda, consent calendar items? I don't think so. Moving on, is there anyone who would like to address the board on any subject? Yes, sir. Please come up here. Nick, if you give us your name and address, please.
Thank you. I'm Nick Menapace, 38 Hope Street on Niantic. I just had to, we obviously all heard about the movie theater's decision to close down. It's very early on in the process. We have, haven't heard a lot of this, and obviously the Board of Selectmen is only where we have ways to go for that one. I would like to say that I think many of us in the town were obviously very disappointed. We understand the perils of dreading businesses, though, but I would just like to say for me, and I hope other people in the town, that we would very much like to see that whatever plans go forward in it, we would love to see that the character of that main street continue on, and as it has, I think all of us love seeing the movie theater right there. Obviously, things will be different, but I guess I like to think about where we are, and I hope that whatever new thing might go in there, that we get to keep that the beautiful facade right there in the front, and that the building stays largely unchanged. We've obviously been able to do a great job of that in the town for a lot of the older buildings and be able to keep them looking beautiful. I'm sure that the Board of Selectmen would like to see that done as well. I just wanted to reiterate my support for that.
Thank you, Mr. Manpage.
Thank you.
And as you know, we can't respond to during delegations to respond. Anyone else like to address the board? Anyone else? Okay, thank you. Moving on. Doing that too. Just so everyone knows, that's not an item for discussion on our agenda tonight either. I'll be referring to it under my comments under First Selectmen's report, but nothing beside that on the agenda for tonight. Okay, moving on. Is there a motion to approve the regular meeting minutes of November 16th, 2022?
Move to approve the regular meeting minutes of November 16th, 2022 as submitted.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second. Any comments or corrections?
Yes.
Ann?
Under page 3, where it says Ms. Chiquella reported, under the second bullet point, it should say there was training on the online mooring software computer program for commission members, and this will be discussed further at the December meeting.
Have that, Sandy? Okay.
And I had
And then, okay, that's one.
That's one.
Then-
Go ahead.
Yeah,
Oh.
the other thing, on the page 4, it talks about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. The sixth bullet down says the holiday stroll. It says is December 26th. I think that's supposed to be November.
Yes, it was, because I think we already had it. So.
Yeah. That's all I have.
Okay,
And-
Ms. Santoro.
Yes, I had a couple. On page 3, where it says Mr. Weber reported, I think in where it says November 29th, public hearing is scheduled regarding public housing. I think we meant, did you mean affordable housing? It was at the
Yeah, that was the
hearing.
affordable housing that we had last.
So maybe
Okay.
just in lieu of
Affordable.
public, it should
Affordable.
say affordable.
Okay.
And then on page 1, towards the bottom of the page, the last sentence in where it says 2, presentation by SCORE, it was agreed that members of SCORE would continue to stay in contact with the Board of Selectmen, often to keep the discussion open and active. The Board of Selectmen assigned Dan Cunningham, and I think it should read Ann Santoro, to represent the board in discussions. Is that?
I think that would be fine, yeah.
Yes, I think.
That's a little more specificity to that. Okay. Okay, is that it?
That's it.
Okay, any others? And Sandy, you got all that? Okay. Is the mover and the seconder comfortable with the, everything?
Yes, yeah.
Okay. All those in favor of approving the minutes as amended signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? And carries unanimously. Okay, 1E, the consent calendar.
Move to approve the consent calendar for the regular meeting of December 7th, 2022, in the amount of $7,597.65.
Is there seconded? Okay.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Carries unanimously. Moving on to our new items, is the first item is the Harbor Management Online Mooring Permit Management System. This is Ron Johnson, our current harbor master, who had submitted his resignation, but it really hadn't been accepted by anyone, so he's still it and is contemplating, as Angela can attest, staying on. But one of the big items and difficulties was the mooring applications. They're all done by hand and paper, and it's massively time-consuming. And so they looked into going out and getting some quotes, and the supporting documentation indicates the other firms they went out to, and they chose to request that the Board of Selectmen authorize the first selectman to execute the memorandum of understanding with the online mooring company, 76 Pratt Street, Glastonbury, for the installation of that. The startup cost for the town is $1,800, and talking with Don McKenzie, they figure they'll need about $2,000, maybe a little less, but we figured $2,000 would be a comfortable number to put in there for part-time town clerical assistance in getting all this set up. They currently have those funds in their budget, so it doesn't require any type of appropriation or moving funds to a different line, because it's all within their budget. But what this will do, right now they're raising their mooring fees from $25 a year, which it was when they started, to $75 a year, which is getting even a little bit closer to what most towns charge. And with the 300 moorings right now, they raise $7,500 a year. By doing this, it'll revenue a little under $22,500, because there is some cost associated with having the firm come in to do the moorings for us. But this will more than cover the additional costs of the administration and part-time clerical as we move into the future. And we're not acting upon it tonight, mainly because Kevin Gervais, our finance office director, was making some barbecues this weekend, and was not paying attention walking down a flight of stairs and fell. So he's got a little bit of a knee problem, so he couldn't be here tonight. We're going to set up much like we do for the Parks and Rec, a revenue account. So when that money comes in, it'll go directly into a revenue account for use by the Harbor Management Commission. And we'll still have to put a little bit of money in the budget, but our actual contribution to that budget for next year will drop, because they'll have access to this, and it'll allow them to do far more. And you've done a lot of work with them too. Thank you on this. So
Yeah.
I'll let you talk to it as well.
So the, I think it's gonna be really good. The problem basically with Ron Johnson, the harbor master, was he was spending all his time doing the clerical, and he wasn't able to spend the time out on the water. He said, I guess it was hours and hours, literally going on weeks, doing the paperwork. And that was one of the reasons that he was thinking about retiring. So once this was brought forward, that we could do an online, where people could do it online, he kind of thought back and reconsidered and said, yeah, I can do this, because he really, wants to do. Also, if there are some residents who don't have access to computers or something like that, they will still be able to do paper, and there's going to be a way to also do that. So.
Yeah. And I'd like to thank to you, to Don McKenzie, who did
Yeah,
so much work, and Sue Bang, who did so much work on this. Thank you.
Yeah, and Don would be here, except that he's coaching basketball, and
Yeah.
he's
Yes.
very busy with that.
Yeah, Don, it's great to say Don, who was used to own Boats Incorporated, sold it, but still is involved down there, continues to serve the community, because he's now also the JV basketball coach, boys basketball coach at the high school, and assistant head coach. So
Exactly.
that's where he is tonight. We told him it was okay now. So, okay, any other questions or concerns?
I just had one. Will town council review?
They
that?
have reviewed it.
The
Yeah.
memorandum?
I'm sorry, I should have, I thought I had that in the cover. No, I did not, but I did run this last week through the, through them, and they're fine with that. I think so. Oh, motion?
Oh,
Oh, yeah.
So, okay.
Oh, no, do you have any questions on it?
No,
Okay.
no other questions, but
Okay.
I know we're not acting on it.
No, there's a,
But there is.
yeah,
there's still
there's a motion just to,
Okay.
yeah.
Hang
Oh,
on.
did you get a?
So,
Did you get it?
yes,
Oh.
hang on. Okay. Move to authorize the first selectman to execute the memorandum of understanding between the town of East Lyme and the online mooring company for the installation and administration of online mooring services from December 8, 2022 until July 1, 2024, as submitted.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, second. Second, any further comments? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Carries unanimously. Moving on to item 2B, this has come back to us. This is the Shoreline Traffic Accident Reconstruction Team that we had we had gone through this before and submitted it to Town Council. Town Council came back and said they are perfectly fine with it as is. And this past Monday, December 5th, the Waterford Town RTM, Representative Town Meeting approved the agreement. It had already gone through their Board of Selectmen a couple months ago. So it has been approved, so all we need to do is authorize me to sign it, and then I'll get a hold of Mr. Brule, and he'd like to do a signing with press notoriety if possible on when we sign it, Elizabeth, since you're here. So,
Okay, we'll move to authorize the first selectman to sign the Shoreline Traffic Accident Reconstruction Team Agreement with the town of Waterford as presented.
is there a second?
Second.
Second. Any other comments? Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Carries unanimously. The next item is, and here again, I told the chief and Julie, Chief Finkelstein and Julie Wilson, they didn't need to come tonight because we knew this was coming. This is for the second half of the grant, the NSEF grant, fiscal year 2023 grant for the town. We've already appropriated $25,948.80, and the remaining $45,125 we got. Julie has indicated they need that appropriated for the standard dispatch laptop, complete with installation, setup, software, and card printer, and this is the final appropriation for the 2023 equipment. This will require a town meeting and obviously go to the Board of Finance. I asked Julie if it was absolutely necessary to have it done in the first meeting in January, which means we have to go through the expense of the ad in the paper and so forth. She said no, it'd be perfectly okay to hold till February. We'll have a couple more items, so she's good with that. But this way, it's at least approved for them. So, any questions? Okay.
All right. So, move to approve a special appropriation in the amount of $19,176.20 to cover the cost of purchasing the below-listed equipment for the EOC and forward to the Board of Finance for action. Note, this requires a town meeting. Standard dispatch laptop, complete with installation, setup, software, and card printer, $19,176.20.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Second. Any further comments? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? It carries unanimously. The next one is a request by the probate court for a little additional funding for this year, and we have an attached document to Kevin from Judge McNamara indicating what they'd like and so forth like that, and it indicates the court experienced a 12% increase, and he documents what it is and so forth in that letter. And here again, we're 4 towns, and our portion of this request is roughly about 42%, which is why it's $420.39, and that's based on the census. We can handle this without any difficulty, and as you can see, we're looking to transfer it from the building official salary to account to the account for the probate court. Their year runs from January 1st through December 31st, which is why we're getting the request now. They also are going to be submitting, they wanted to submit a request for a combination, all 4 towns' contribution, $8,500 for new furniture and some money for a postage machine. And all the 4, and apparently Kevin found out that we're the the organizer for all the 4 towns, and we all agreed that that would be a better, that that's not urgent, that could wait till every town can budget for it in next fiscal year, so that's going to be withheld. So, that's it. Any questions?
This is coming out of the building department?
We're going to transfer, because we have a large overage of the building salary for this year, so we're going to take the money out of that to fund this.
That is due to replacement of personnel?
Because here again, we've had a building inspector and the interim building inspector and 1 assistant. The budget was approved for a building inspector official, the chief building official, and 2 part-timers, so we haven't used, we're down at roughly less than 30% of that, almost halfway through the year.
I just had a question also about the budget increase for this department, if you will. I thought their budget was already at $16,080. I mean, that's what I looked up, so I didn't quite understand in the letter how it's an increase from 14,000 annually to 16,000. So I wasn't sure if it's because he's on that calendar year, if that's why that looks like that.
I think that's what it is, because they're on a different calendar year, they're on a different schedule than we are, and, you know, and that's one of the things Kevin was addressing with the judge, was, you know, it'd be easier, if, you know, basically getting us, you know, and specify that, okay, that their fiscal year is different than ours.
Okay.
So that's one of the things that Kevin's addressing now with the other towns as well, to add some clarity to that.
And no town meeting needed for this?
No, but it should go, forward to the Board of Finance Board of Finance will approve this, because it is from one department to the next.
Right,
So
right,
that
so,
should be in the
okay.
motion.
Right.
So, just a question, are they gonna try to get the probate court on our schedule, instead of, you know?
No,
January to December?
he's working on something to where they can estimate what they might have for the first, you know, basically, they'll do the first half of the year, because we're on, you know, we're 6 months apart. Sort of like the federal government's always 3 months, but, you know, everybody, we can't make it easy and all do it on the same schedule, but that's what they're looking at doing,
Okay.
to do a better job of estimating for that second half of the year.
Okay. Great, thank you.
This has never come up before, and since they've regionalized the probate courts.
We'll move to approve a special appropriation in the amount of $420.39 from account 01-01-104-100-212, building official salary, to account 01-01-111-150-295, probate services, and forward to the Board of Finance for approval.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second. Okay, it's been seconded. Any further comments? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Carried unanimously. Moving on, it'll be a much briefer fiscal year 2022-23 town budget update, because the finance director, you know, used an excuse of falling down and walking. He came in today for a few hours, and his knee you could just see his knee swelling up, so we told him, look, go home, do not worry about tonight. So just some updates. Revenue, and this is of December 1st, so this will actually be lagging. Tax collections are at 56.78% of what they would normally be, because right now we've estimated, or the budget shows $65,069,259, and so far we've collected almost $40 million in general taxes, or property taxes. So that's 56.78, and next month is when we'll start getting them. Back taxes, we anticipated getting, our estimate was, in the budget, was $475,000 in back taxes for this year. We've already collected $287,000 plus, so we're at 60.57 of where we thought we'd be, so that's really good. Conveyance taxes, we estimated $285,000. This is what conveyance taxes are when people close on properties and houses are sold and businesses are sold, we get that. We anticipated 285,000. We're already at 214,000, which is 75%. So there's a good chance that'll exceed. The municipal revenue sharing account, which we didn't anticipate any money, we've received 589,171. Building permits, we estimated 455,000. We've already at 61%. We're at 277,000 plus. In zoning permits, we anticipated 25,000 for the year. We're already at 27,000 plus. So we've seen some, some good revenue sources, and there's some others that are, the little ones. Some are down a little bit, but nothing is dramatically down. Nothing else is dramatically off. And if they are, it's where we anticipated 1,500, and we've already got 2,000, which, that's a little more. As far as just out of the general budget for expenditures, lines that we're showing some, I hate that we use the word surpluses, but we haven't, we should be at 42.3% of our expenditures this year. Building, we're significantly down. The salary contingency, which we had set aside because of the way the contracts felt and so forth like that, we're going to be saving some money on there. Kevin is a little hesitant to say how much, but we've worked out there. HR, because we didn't hire the assistant until the September timeframe, and there was a gap for a couple months with having an HR director. We're seeing some savings there. IT was budgeted from July 1st. That person didn't come on board until November 1st, so there's some savings in those accounts. Some challenges. Part-time firefighters, but that's running over, but their salary expenditures are down a little bit, and that's because one firefighter had left, and then another firefighter was called to active duty with the National Guard. So because of the fact that his military salary pay is higher than his firefighter, we don't have to pay anything for that. So we're saying there. Same thing with the police. A little bit of overage and overtime, but they're down in salary, and that's because we've had a couple sergeants who were injured, and the workers' comp covers that as far as the salary line, but we're over a little bit in overtime. Nothing that is going to be a problem to deal with. Joe Bergau's not here now, but he just, and here again I told him, Joe, you don't have to send me these emails at 7 in the morning, but he did, saying we're going to be about $25,000 in the hole or over expenditures in fuel oil, which is something that we just could not predict. But we do have resources for that. We haven't had to dip into our contingency much at all, so if that's not a problem there. Another area, legal, we're at about 65% expenditure from our general legal budget this year. The majority of that comes from the zoning planning building office. So last month I said, if you need to contact the town attorney, you got to come through me first. And if they contact you and you're doing business with them on something that's already been initiated, to notify Kevin and me at the end of the month. Yesterday I had a nice memo from Bill, from Gary, so they have accounted for their time and so forth like that, and it's down significantly over the last month. So that's something that we're just tracking a little more carefully. We think we can get that under control. But that's just it. There's no concern that we're going to have a budgetary problem this year because, like I said, Joe monitors it. In fact, yesterday he came to me and said, look, they're down however many cents over the last several days. Is it okay to lock in with 75% of next year's right now? And Joe is, here again, that's almost like being an actuary. You have to guess. Next month it could be down another 10 or 20 cents, but it could be up 30 cents. So I said it's okay to go ahead and do that because then it's a known commodity moving into next year. But all told, with revenues and one other thing too, one other revenue I didn't mention is we budgeted for saving or for bank account revenues. We budgeted $20,000 as of the end of November. We don't have December figures yet. We had $81,000. So we're seeing some positive response there. But here again, that's only up higher because inflation is up higher. So And I've set up my budget meetings for next month with all the department heads. They're meeting with Kevin this month to go over their budget submissions. And they're all telling me, and I said, don't worry, come with me what you want. I said, I have a pen with a lot of red ink in it, so. Anyway, any questions?
So was the expectation that Kevin was going to give us some kind of report today?
Well, he was gonna have a little bit more details but you know, he and I sat down and went through this last week, so I took pretty good notes of it. I think I pretty much covered all the high points.
Yeah, we were all scribbling down notes, and I'm just guessing that we all got half of it wrong. So,
Yeah, no, I sat down with him, and he had this, and he did have a presentation planned for tonight. But, you know, I just wanted to make sure that, you know, it's nice to know going right now where we stand and things where we are. So nothing that is going to get us to the point where, oops, what are we going to do? We have the resources to deal with it. Sandy has volunteered to work for free if needed. You can smile, Sandy, when I say that. So, anyway, any other questions? Okay. Moving on, Roseanne had asked that we put the ethics policy here for review, and it probably isn't bad. And in fact, someone suggested to me today, I met with Denise Hall, Board of Finance Chair, and told her we were doing this tonight. And she even mentioned that, you know, we'd have to actually go through the town attorney on this, but it might not be a bad idea to have everybody, every appointed and elected official on a yearly basis, just sign off on the fact that they have read and reviewed and, you know, the ethics code and policy. So I'm going to have town attorney look through this and that too. So Roseanne, did you have anything specifically you wanted to address?
Well, when this was, when we first developed this and instituted it, the gift value was of $25, and that seems rather low for today's prices. But I think the key point here is that this ethics policy was supposed to apply to all employees in the town. And to the best of my knowledge, this has never been brought before the Board of Education or any action taken on this. And I am aware that many individuals have received gifts far in excess of $25 and accepted them. So I think that this is something that we need to clarify, and that this needs to be discussed as to whether this is applicable to all the boards and commissions in town, which, in my opinion, is clearly stated as such. But apparently there's some feeling that several of the Board of Education employees are not local employees, which rather puzzled me. But I think that it's time to just take a look at it. I think that this has kind of been shelved, and we haven't been paying a lot of attention to it.
Do you know if the Board of Ed has its own, you would know, do they have their own ethics code or policy?
No.
They do not. Okay.
One thing, one thing to keep in mind is when the purchasing policy was finally completed a couple of years ago, the ethics code and the one provision in the charter concerning general ethics for officials and so forth is codified. It's put into the purchasing policy. And it's not just a reference, it's actually printed in the policy itself. So that's something that, and I see your point, Roseanne. I think, you know, in large part, it's, you know, ethics policies kind of do get shelved. But I thought that was a good development a couple of years ago, that was, we definitely had to look at ethics issues, and in so doing, you know, made it completely part of the policy. So it's something that if department heads are aware and reading their purchasing policy, that's the last couple of pages of the policy. So.
Does the purchasing policy, I know it applies to the town, does it also apply to the Board of Ed?
no.
And like the school?
Good, yeah.
Actually, it does, because with the purchase of, they just had it, they asked for an exception just this past week regarding, because of the cyber problem they had. I don't want to say cyber attack because we don't really know what it was, and that they wanted to move quickly on something, and they asked for a waiver of the purchasing policy, which I said, okay, given the urgency of that, in that it was okay to do that. So they have come to us to request waivers in the purchasing policy. They have adhered to that.
And when the purchasing policy was being written, it seemed as though the Board of Education wanted to either adopt it or use it as a model, and that never really happened. So my understanding from Mariana, I believe, was just that it's utilized, but I don't know the extent to which.
Because when we were working on
Right.
it, it was not going to be their policy. They were going to look at it
They
when
were
we were
going to look at
done
it as a
and
template.
consider it, and it said it. So when you say yes, now it is, it's like, oh, that's good then. I think that we have one
Yes.
purchasing policy is.
I mean, yeah, I'd like to just get some verification of what do they use when, do they use the thresholds that we established? That would be interesting to know for sure.
But is there a consensus that it might not be, here again, I think $25 is a fine number, by the way, too, because if you moved it to, say, $50, that
Yeah, I think that invites temptation.
that invites, temptation, too.
So when I read this, I mean, it was clear, as I read it, it was clear that this is for all town employees.
Right.
It does not say excluding Board of Ed, right? I mean, they still get paid the same as everybody else from our taxpayer base.
What I can do is refer, I can pass this on to the superintendent. My guess is they'll probably want to have their legal department review it and that. But,
And
But I've been on essentially every board in town over the last 20 years, and I've never seen this before the
before the purchasing policy.
So the
yeah.
idea that we should sign this at least once per election cycle,
Yeah, it's-
maybe once a year might be excessive, but every other year.
yeah,
Definitely.
did I say once a year?
Yeah,
I meant to say, well, here.
No, I like
Yeah.
the idea that everybody that's covered by this,
Right.
including town employees, know that it exists.
Yeah.
So that's a question for HR. Do they get
Yeah.
the purchasing policy in their packet, when they
They
take a
did,
job?
they do not.
Okay.
Okay, but that's a good point. I think that's, I'll definitely make a note of that.
Do the town employees have like a standards of conduct?
Yes, they do.
Okay, and does that include ethics in it then?
I wish I could tell,
Yeah.
they do not see this,
Look-
the ethics
Yeah.
code.
Yeah.
We'll make sure that's, the nice thing is with HR, where we've come in the last year, and HR in this town is remarkable, would have an actual director and now an assistant to that too, because, just to give you an idea, the assistant the other day, we're having trouble filling the foreman position in the Parks and Rec maintenance, because you require some certifications in that with applying of pesticides and so forth like that, and it's just hard to find somebody. And Dina reached out to the UConn School of Agriculture and said, just brainstorming, hey, do you have any ideas? And they developed a couple of candidates for us by doing this. So, and that's something that having this resource that we didn't used to have, and here again, finding out several things to do it and making a whole lot but I think I'll reach out to town attorney and see if we need to do any tweaking on this. If not, add it to something for, we could, to the various chairmen of the boards and commissions to look at having, people sign off at least once during their term.
And interestingly, it is an ordinance. It's not.
Yeah.
It's not a policy. That
Yeah.
you can, it's an ordinance, so that
Yeah.
it has the strength of any other law.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, if
That's a good
we are
thing.
going to tweak it, there was a couple of things that I would add just for clarity, but.
Okay, the other thing is tweaking it requires a lot of money.
That's what I'm saying. If we tweak it,
yeah,
Because then we
I'd
have
love
we have to do it, then we have to have a
Yeah,
public
yeah,
hearing and
no,
post
yeah.
the
No.
entire thing in the day newspaper, and
I don't see anything blatantly wrong with it or any
Yeah.
big anythings. I
Yeah.
just see some things that, some clarity or some little things that I would put in here.
covers the topics pretty well.
Such as the $25,000 should be an annual, because there is situations where you can get cumulative,
Yeah.
there's 25 and 25 and 25 and 25, and it adds up.
Definitely.
So our ethics policy has an annual $25,000, yeah, $25 per year.
Like 25,000, where are you getting that from?
Oh, that's
Like, I should
good.
be 25,000.
Whoa, let's go, we're all set to go. All right, okay, any other comments? Roseanne, thank you for
Yeah.
asking to review this too. It's good, I mean, it's something, and moving forward too, so.
Good to look at it.
Yeah, okay, moving on to, completes our business agenda, moving on to ex officio reports. Roseanne?
I don't have one for this evening.
Okay, Dan,
I don't either.
we're on a roll.
Okay, I do have one, sorry to
Okay, no, it's
break
okay.
the trend. Board of Education meeting, I went to November 28th. Two highlights. One was a very good presentation by the Southeast Regional Action Council, SERAC. They did a youth survey for 2022 for East Lyme schools, grades 7 to 12. If you go and watch the video, you can see the presentation mostly it's at the beginning of the and it's a slide presentation. And grades 7 to 12 were asked about 1,194 students were asked, just 80 less did not complete the survey, so 1,111 completed it. And so the survey concerned substance use, and the results are that alcohol is the substance of choice amongst the students at 16.6%, marijuana second, 9.7%. My takeaways from this and the highlights of the presentation, I think it's worth watching and listening to. For marijuana, I think the concern was that the students were using it for coping purposes, not so much because it felt good or whatever. And the SERAC person, I'm sorry, I cannot remember her name, who gave the presentation, said that's indicative of addiction when there is this rationale, the coping rationale for using. Other things that stuck out to me, and I think to Board of Education members, 25% of students reported that cheating on a test at school is okay. So I mean that was a somewhat of a surprise. And then otherwise results concerning suicide thoughts and depression, I think those were also concerning. So the Board of Ed is going to take this data. I know the Youth Coalition is working on some of these issues through our Youth Services Department, but Board of Ed will be digesting this information, probably looking at other surveys too. There's recently some national surveys that have come out on substance abuse with children under 18. So, and try to incorporate and utilize the information in some way for some of their programs. So, and the other topic that happened, or the other issue that came up at this meeting on the 28th was the budget deficits. And Jeff Newton gave a budget, sort of a little summary, which may have been what was also given to our Board of Finance recently on that budget deficit. The total at this point is $677,000, and that does not include dollars yet to be spent to perhaps deal with purchasing a new server because of what had recently happened. So I have that in case anyone wants a copy, and we can maybe get those at the end of the meeting. But that was it for me. Thanks.
Okay, questions for Ann? Ann?
Okay, so I went to the Inland Wetland Agency meeting last night, and one of the issues was the Niantic Soapy Noble LLC. They made an application at 230 Flanders Road. This is to do a basically 3,400 square foot car wash facility, drive aisles, parking, vacuum. So it's going to be at the location of the other car wash near Stop and Shop. And the board voted unanimously to have a public hearing on that. There's also an application for the redevelopment of 190, 196, and 202 Flanders Road, which is the 4,200 square foot convenience store and related appurtenances. And they had a public hearing on this last month, and it was approved unanimously last night by the Inland Wetland Agency. And the third was a request for determination or permitting for non-regulated activity for property at Scott Road, which is, I think it's 6.7 acres. It was presented by Mr. Ron Lewidge, and was approved by the board. This is for potential residential subdivision, and the board approved it, saying there was no impact basically to the upland review area or the wetlands within 300 feet. That was it for me.
Okay.
So for me, the Board of Ed 12-5 was a procedural night, so just re-elections of candidates or members and officers, I'm sorry, and calendars and things like that, so nothing there. The November 29th planning meeting, though, was the public hearing, and the meeting afterwards was very meaty and very interesting. Dr. Donald Poland from Goman, York, presented the affordable housing plan. There's a draft on the website, but his presentation I thought was really interesting because he talked about the demographics of the town and how people change and how right now families are getting smaller. So there's recommendations in the plan to have less parking per unit and things like that that go along with our families getting smaller. The presentation that he presented was in draft form. After he left, the planning board had some discussions about things that they've already changed. You missed the last meeting. So I was going to go into all the details because it is a good meaty conversation to get us to that 10% goal. Right now we're at 6.15%, which compared to all the towns around us, we're doing better than pretty much everybody else. Waterford's even a tick mark below us, but we're doing better than Old Lyme, Salem, Montville. So he feels like our policies are doing good, but we should do better. Demographic-wise, we actually have our household income 35K to 75K that we're overachieving, right? We've got that one section that we're doing really well in. So I won't go into all the recommendations. They're online. But there are a number of recommendations on things that we can do and how we can pay for them and things like that. So I would suggest that if you want to go online and look at it, or I can send you a copy of it because I've got a copy of the presentation. So that should be going forward next meeting, and I can report out on it then.
Okay. Any questions for Bill? Okay, moving on to the first Selectmen's report. Charter revision. They've had a couple of meetings, and they met last night, and I attended the meeting. And one of the things they're pretty much decided to move forward with when they recommend is if someone resigns during their term, the replacement will fill for the remainder of the term. So that's that. Roseanne, they're probably going to reach out to you to ask for your input, a little bit more of your input regarding the Conservation Commission and in the wetlands and so forth. So I told them that you were out of town for a few days, so they'll be reaching out to you. But that's it too. A good discussion on town clerk, tax collector. They seem to like the idea of possibly, they look over the last several years with Esther and with Karen and Leslie while she was in, that basically always ran unopposed. But obviously making sure that, this way you want to ensure that the person being elected has the qualifications for the job, the certifications and so forth. So they haven't made a recommendation, but they seem to be heading in that area. So lots of good discussion went on with that. The first meeting they have of the month is basically the group meeting. The second meeting they just get together. They go through a couple things and they break into subcommittees, and there's 3 separate subcommittees to deal with the charges and so forth. So they're making really good progress because they like by April to have really the hard part of their work done. So it's going well for the charter revision. Nova time, where we're trying to bring our payroll into the 20th century. I did not say 21st, I said 20th. Right now, it's still manually entered and so forth. And, you know, it has to be at the bank by Wednesday at 3 o'clock, and earlier than that if it's, say, during Thanksgiving week. We're going to take roughly a 2.5-day job and make it a 3.5-hour job. So it'll free up a lot more time to get things done. In fact, next week, I guess I have to go training for it too, because I have to know how to enter things and override things and so forth like that. So that's going to be something there. Regarding the Board of Ed, I've talking with Jeff. I'm going to ask him to come to the second meeting in January to discuss their budget, make an agenda item so that we can talk about their budget situation. Also, an upcoming meeting that Eversource is set for the local communities and emergency management to discuss how to respond to possible or what would, if you had electrical or power shortages during the winter. They very specifically said, we do not anticipate it, but we want to make sure that we discuss it in case it ever becomes an issue. So that is something we're going to talk about. The cinemas, as was mentioned, you know, it's a sad thing because anybody that grew up in town or lived in town for a long time has a lot of good memories of the cinema. In fact, I was talking with George Mitchell. We were talking about what used to be the balcony, and he said, "There's a lot of things going on that balcony." I said, you know." But it was nice talking to George and Peter and so forth like that yesterday, and you know, it's something that's a terrible loss as far as a resource, but it's private property. You know, the town can't dictate what has to go in there, but I know the Mitchells have obviously a family of long history and they care about the town. So, and it even said to contact George if there's any interest in that, and people have already shown interest. So, I'm sure. Then they're also, I know George and the family have been working with the Yale Charette Main Street organization, because we're doing that now to look at what to do, you know, maybe help out in some areas there. So there's definitely to make sure this is still, it's like the main, if you want to say where's the center of Main Street, you would say Niantic Cinemas. So we want to make sure that people still think of that there and move forward there too, and incorporate that too, because I met with a presentation yesterday about a company that might be interested in purchasing the Dominion building and not building it as a restaurant and condos or anything, but building a thing which would be welcome to people. It would be for profit, but people would be able to go in, experience different types of activities and so forth like that. And there's this thing called a portal, where there's one in Lithuania right now, and there's one in Poland right now, where you actually see what's going on in this other country, and they're going to be installing them in Denmark, San Francisco, and New York coming up. And what a perfect thing to look, a gateway to the world type of thing. And they're interested in, you know, developing this property and so forth like that. So it was just a presentation yesterday. I said, "What's the cost?" And they said, "Well, no, that'd be us. They would absorb the cost because it would be their facility." So it was just a meeting yesterday, so hopefully we'll have some progress with that moving on. Moving on to some happy things. The tree lighting, the stroll was a lot of fun. It went really well. The weather couldn't have been better. Lots of activity in Main Street. You know, they even had a debrief afterwards. What can you do better? The only thing they thought is a little better lighting to send people to that back area where behind the movie theaters, where people were. That was the only thing they had. I was excited. My grandson got to push the button to light the trees, the Christmas tree, and the only thing that's true is a cordless microphone, because the tree's over there, but we all had to be over here. We were tied to a cord. So anyway, but it was a really good activity. The light parade is this Saturday at 6 p.m. It's looking like the weather will be a little cool, but it looks like it's, you know, they were talking about rain earlier. That's obviously, if you want to come early, because that is a very popular thing to go to. You know, fortunately, my son lives over here on Smith Street, so I'll be parking there and walking down and making it a lot easier for there. So that pretty much covers my report. Any questions for me?
No, but thank heavens we got the Elvis movie in before the theater closed.
Yeah. Well, that's, you know, I was talking with George. I said, you know, talking about things like, you know, it'd be nice, could you do weekends and that, but the thing is that it's a big place. Everyone knows the heat, cool, and so forth like that. There's a lot of expense in that too. And George was we were talking about when Top Gun was here. 65% of the ticket sales goes to the company that provides the movie. So it's not as if it's a big thing. So, and I think, and I know it was not an easy decision for them to make either too, because you know they know the resource it has, or the asset has been to the town. So, but
All right. My second thing is the Veterans Day ceremony.
oh yes,
The sound system was so bad that people could not hear, and it was muffled. It was an embarrassment. At one point, we gave money to Parks and Rec to buy a sound system which was to be used on the town green. And I don't know what happened to that system, but it was definitely superior to what we experienced on Veterans Day. And for something as important as that, it was really an embarrassment.
okay.
And so I'd like to know if the case is, if that equipment that we bought for them is no longer operable, then I don't think that we should have to rely on volunteers to come in and set up something that nobody knows how to operate. And then my last thing would be the charter revision group. Is there any kind of a schedule that they're putting out for when they're discussing certain topics for the main meeting?
I could address that to Mr. Salerno. He's chairing the committee.
If you look at the first agenda that's published on the town website, it's got all the meeting notices, all the meeting days for all the different subcommittees. That's what I looked at. That's what I've been sharing with people.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other comments? Okay. No communications? Any public comment? Seeing none, there'll be no selectmen's response then. Next thing is we're going to move into executive session to discuss Oswegatchie Hills property.
Okay, we'll move to enter into executive session for the purpose of discussing real estate matters, East Lyme Land Trust, Oswegatchie Hills property. The board is entering into executive session at 8:08 p.m.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? We're in executive session, so thank you all for coming, and we'll be taking about a 5-minute break.
Thanks.
Okay, we're back from executive session, and
All right, the board returned at, let's see, 8:50 p.m. And no formal votes were taken.
okay, is there a motion to adjourn?
I'll move to adjourn.
Okay,
Second.
seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you, and very safe and happy holiday season to everyone.